Hello, I am Brian Brooks. I'm one of the programmers at SeriesFest, and welcome to the Q&A for the pilot Racist Trees, which is featured in the non-scripted competition at SeriesFest Season 6. Please join me, virtually join me in welcoming co-director Sarah Newens, and wave and say hello, and producer Joanna Sokolowski, and cinematographer Jerry Henry. Welcome, guys. Thanks for virtually joining us on Zoom for the Q&A. Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when I first saw this pilot, when we were doing the programming phase of the festival, I mean, I have to say, just immediately, just the title itself was so very jarring. You know, trees seem so innocent. Most people, I think, hopefully all people like them, and they're good for the earth. And it was so interesting, you know, such an interesting take on in this story. I mean, as I think Tucker Carlson in that one segment in the pilot seemed to want to exploit that fact that, you know, trees are things that people like. So maybe just for background, you know, how did the history of this come into your orbit? And whoever wants to take it first.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, our title was ripped from the headlines that this story created. And I have to say, having made many films and never, ever feeling like there was a good title, it was a relief that this named itself. And we became aware about this story because there was so much media attention on this small community in Palm Springs. The Desert Sun did an incredible amount of reporting on this particular story in this community. And so just from reading the first article about how many residents feel that these trees are segregating them from the rest of the city, you know, it just called out to be, you know, investigated even further, and felt very visual because these trees are so, you know, command such a presence in the community as well.
And so then, like, through those stories and so forth, was that how you were able to find some of your subjects? Because I mean, they're such interesting characters, and you have such a broad spectrum, you know, in you know, the space of a short amount of time of the community, it seems like. So is that where you found a lot of some of the subjects, or what was sort of the process of
yeah, absolutely. Corinne Kennedy, who covered this story for the Desert Sun, was integral in this process. I mean, she had done a lot of the legwork that you know, that a lot of documentaries require, because she had already been interviewing with residents in the community. So she really helped introduce us to almost everybody that we spoke with, and in particular Trey Daniel, who was the most vocal. Right.
Yeah. Quite interesting. So Jerry, maybe we saw the visuals. I mean, I've been to Palm Springs quite a few times, and I really love to go there. I've never, I mean, you know, I'm certainly lost upon me, but I mean, you definitely see it as you present it just on the visuals. So maybe talk about what you were going for, and yeah, just talk about that part, because it was definitely very evident in the space of the pilot of this separation and so forth.
When Sarah introduced the project to me, I mean, I was immediately kind of drawn to the subject matter. And you know, Palm Springs, there's this sort of this ideal of Palm Springs that we all know of. It's with, you know, it's sort of kind of that place outside of Hollywood. It's an extension of it. It's, you know, all the glitz and the glamour. But what I was really interested in, you know, what we talked about is sort of kind of capturing that little sort of that story that like a little dirty little secret almost, you know. And so the color palette, while everything has its sort of kind of showing everything sort of that's glossy, also the gritty side of it. And so it's interesting how stark, when you're on the side of the residents, than it looks on the golf course. The golf course is obviously pristine and it's well manicured. And then when you get in the backyard of the residents, there's all these brown sort of pine needles, and, you know, everything's just the exact opposite. And so the aerials actually was, you know, I fly a lot of drones, and I was telling Sarah the other day that this was like probably one of the best examples of that I've used them for to really show that divide. I mean, when you're flying over and you see the palm, you know, I mean the golf course, and then you see the resident. I mean, it's literally night and day.
Right.
And just being able to have the drone also become this character that actually takes us in and out of this world. I thought that was, like, you know, pretty well executed, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't seen it edited, and so once I saw it all together, I was like, wow, it's actually, you can actually see it.
Yeah. I mean, what was also amazing to me is, you know, obviously when you think of Palm Springs, obviously there's the desert, but then the other thing you think of besides pools and golf courses are palm trees.
Right.
You know, and obviously these trees were chosen for a particular reason, and like a lot of the things that you hone in on in the pilot, because they're like walls.
Yeah. And then one other thing was the tone as well. Is like I really really like the tone of the piece. It has sort of this. It's almost like it's this commentary, but it's not light in any sense, but it's everything's just juxtaposed against something else. So there's this tone that's sort of a little quirky, but it's talking about this subject matter that's, you know, really heartfelt and really serious. And I feel like they balance each other with these wide frames that we were doing the interviews in, with lots of headspace, so you can see the space. We're in people's backyards. You see the different spaces, and then, you know, they're intimate, but they also are really expansive as well.
Right. One more question, and I want to get a little background on you guys as well. But it was interesting. Also, I mean, you acknowledge that, you know, Palm Springs today is a fairly-ish liberal enclave. You know, it has, you know, an LGBT community that's quite vibrant, and it's an artist, and they have a great film festival I've been to before. I actually, you know, I think it's like it embraces the arts, and you know, and the one city official that you spotlight, you know, thinks that it's kind of crazy because he acknowledges it's sort of liberal present, but it seems like perhaps they don't want to acknowledge this even today, which is perhaps surprising to some people. Was that surprising to you guys? And maybe Joanna, if you want to talk about that a little bit, or yeah. I mean, you can all jump in, but I'm just
I mean, I think that's something that we're all going to be grappling with now into the future for a long time, is the way that white liberals seem to have blinders on to their own experience of privilege and their own understanding of racism. And that, you know, part of my interest in this project was, like Sherry said, like there's a quirky way that it's being unpacked because the trees are kind of funny and the tone is kind of light. But what we're really talking about is the fact that these white liberal-minded folks aren't ready or willing to grapple with a racist legacy, and because of their resistance to grappling with it, they can't make any change because they're so stuck in their own reality of this isn't racist, I didn't do anything bad. And so I think that's really like the undertone of the whole project, right? Is like watching them kind of get stuck in this kind of silly conversation or lighter conversation. But really what we're talking about is white folks not being able to accept and move forward with their own privilege and understanding of racial inequality.
Yeah, I just found that part where I was just like, oh my gosh, when, I mean, you know.
Yeah, and you know, that's pretty common. So I don't think he's not very surprising that he's not willing to do that. I don't think many people are. So, and I think that's what makes it maybe even more like, like, oh, he said the thing.
Yeah.
And
please.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in because, you know, we're still developing the series, but I think that's really what we want to unpack is, you know, how this still exists in very quote unquote liberal communities. And you know, what's funny is that this really got picked up and by conservatives like Tucker Carlson. You know, and you know, it actually helps us like with that examination, because while they're trying to point out this hypocrisy, it's really like, you know, forcing us to really look at what, you know, what our viewpoints are and how we can, you know, get out of these defending these very liberal spaces and ideas.
Maybe just as we wrap up, I'd love to know just how you guys all came together for this, and also as you were somewhat alluding to the series itself, what are you guys envisioning for for continuing the series. And maybe Sarah, since you were this, you'll pick it up and then we'll go around.
Sure. Well, I mean, working with Joanna and Jerry was a no-brainer. I'm also an editor, and I've been editing stuff that Jerry has shot for years. So I knew his brilliance and his, I mean, I really can't underscore that because I've cut so many things now that are not shot well and aren't shot patiently and thoughtfully. And you really have to save it in the edit. But in the cases where I was editing what Jerry shot, it was just like a dream as an editor, because I felt like, there's so many options and opportunities. And then Joanna and I have been friends for years. Have we worked on stuff together before? I think I just always wanted to work with Joanna.
Right. And then Jerry, did you have like or do you guys all have sort of a non-scripted background generally, or have you been kind of going across genre in your previous works?
I'm a documentary DP. So
documentary DP. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, that's the majority. Yeah, that's like 99% of the stuff that I shoot. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And then maybe Joanna, do you want to tease like what might be on the horizons for you guys?
Gosh, yes. Well, we are, this is just the pilot. We have over, we're working towards finishing the series, but we're really hoping to find funding and get it picked up and find a home for it. A humongous amount of it is already shot and completed. The edit's working, and so we're just really excited hoping that this pilot really shows people how incredible this series can be, and how, feel like it stretches a lot of genre and like boundaries in a kind of a short amount of time. And we're really just excited to find a good home for it. So
excellent. Well, so happy to have it at SeriesFest. Thank you guys so much. And pilot again is Racist Trees, SeriesFest season 6. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us, guys. Very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.